I think One Nation's been the only consistent political party for the last 20 years.
They're not talking about you. Alright, well let me tell you, One Nation is talking about you.
It's like the media's run away from One Nation. They're too scared to ask us any questions, mainly because we're straight talkers and we've got the answers.
This is like a call to arms. You guys need to start making the real decisions and who you're going to vote for.
Our first speaker is Rebecca Thompson. Now, in my time in One Nation, I've not met a more passionate person or someone that feels more passionate about the party than Rebecca Thompson. I would even say probably more so than even Pauline Hanson. Rebecca really loves One Nation. She's committed to the party because she has conviction and she believes in what the party stands for, because she's all about representing her community. She wants to be a strong representative of her community, and the policies of One Nation really appeal to people of communities like Western Sydney. I know she's doing it. We do a podcast together, so I've had a lot of times where we get to know each other, events like this. So I know what she stands for and I know what she believes in. I know she's doing this for all the right reasons. But above all, I know she's doing this for her family and for her two little children. So please put your hands together and we'll hear from Rebecca.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rebecca Thompson, former federal candidate for the seat of Hume. I began my journey with One Nation 1 year ago in the midst of COVID, where our democracy shifted and we started to question who these politicians were as they made cruel and illogical decisions on our behalf, impacting our daily lives. Thankfully, we are able to put COVID and the past 2 years behind us. However, I acknowledge and will not forget the stories I've heard and the impacts that restrictions and mandates had and still have on many people. Today we face issues of increased cost of living, housing shortages, all-time high fuel prices, increased homelessness, a looming energy crisis, and woke ideologies infiltrating all parts of society, including our school and education system. One Nation is the only Conservative choice for the people of New South Wales, with practical and common sense policies that best serve the people of New South Wales. The Australian way of life, Australian values that we all hold dear, must be fought for and protected. Our faiths and our right to openly practice them must be protected from discrimination. Most importantly, we must preserve our children's innocence and protect their education by removing the unnecessary and perverted gender theories, sexuality and gender fluidity discussions and lessons from our education system. I must take the opportunity to thank the Honourable Mark Latham and the Honourable Roberts, who I've been lucky to get to know over these past few months. Their strength and dedication to the people of New South Wales is unwavering, and I am grateful for their hard work. I hope to continue to learn and work alongside them as a potential candidate for the New South Wales state election. I have learned many things throughout my journey as a former candidate for One Nation, but the biggest lesson I have learned is, when you truly believe in what you stand for, you find the inner strength to keep fighting for what is right and pushing forward. We must continue to stand up and push forward to ensure more people with integrity are elected into Parliament. I would like to thank Adam and his wife Tatum and Stephen Tripp for all their hard work in putting tonight together, and most importantly, I would like to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight and supporting One Nation in New South Wales. Thank you.
Well done, Rebecca. How good was that? Please, another round of applause. Fantastic speech. Okay, so we'll just just move on to our next speaker, who will be the Honourable Rod Roberts. The more I learn about Rod, the more I'm impressed. The more I get to know him, the more I'm getting a tremendous amount of respect for him. You could say that he has done it all, or at least tried to. For 2 decades, he was a plainclothes detective. So what better Member of Parliament to speak about law and order? He also had a career in real estate. So what better Member of Parliament to address housing affordability and property development? He also had a business in Goulburn. Well, that kills 2 birds with 1 stone, because what better Member of Parliament can speak about small business but at the same time addressing rural concerns? If the New South Wales Upper House was a cricket team, then Rod Roberts would be the all-rounder. Can you please put your hands together as we welcome the Honourable Rod Roberts.
Thank you, Stephen, for those kind words. Now, firstly, I'd like to thank you all for attending this evening, and I'd take this opportunity to give you my official welcome. I know Adam welcomed everybody, and so did Stephen, but on my behalf, welcome to you all this evening. I'd like to congratulate both Rebecca and Adam on not only organising this evening, but for showing the desire and commitment to run as candidates in the 2023 state election as representatives of One Nation. Rebecca in the seat of Wallandilly and Adam in the seat of Campbelltown. Now, both Mark and I know and understand what a huge commitment this is, and acknowledge you both for doing so. Having got the recent federal election under your belt, you are both maturing into good advocates for not only One Nation, but your respective local areas, and your efforts are appreciated. Now, this is difficult for me to know what to say now at this time, and I'll explain to you why. Mark, as our party leader, is usually invited to speak first, and traditionally I follow him. So I feel like the comedian that's doing the warm-up act before the main gig. But we all know he's the real deal and the star and the person you've really come to see tonight, and he's been kept to a little bit later. Now, I raise this because I want to be careful not to canvass or go over areas and policies that Mark wishes to address. And so for that reason, I will just give a broad overview and leave it for Mark to get down and dirty, if you will, with the more granular aspects of our policies and positions for the March election. Now, some of you may have heard me say this before, but I believe it's worth repeating, and I want to take the opportunity to distill down for you what we as a party represent. And first and foremost, we are the party of ordinary mums and dads out there. We are for the middle-of-the-road Australians and for the battlers working day in and day out to provide for their families. We represent the people who want to see their kids grow up and be successful in life. These are the people that the major parties have neglected and forgotten. The people that are not at the big end of town, or those are the trade union leaders. A few years ago, these people were referred to as Howard's battlers, the aspirational, that were prepared to work hard and get ahead in life. Well, the Liberal Party of today has completely moved away from that and left a void and a position and a space that I believe that we firmly fill. Conversely, the modern-day Labor Party does not represent its traditional base of blue-collar workers from the southwest and western suburbs of Sydney. Nowadays, they're more content to chase the green inner-city vote. They have and are continuing to pursue the ideas of identity politics and the woke ideas of the left. They are happy to pander to the environmental vote, regardless of the consequences this will have on the working class, with increases in the cost of living and the loss of a number of jobs in key industries. Mark and I and the rest of One Nation are more than willing to step in and fill the void in Labor policy, and more than willing to champion on behalf of those that are left behind. Now, we have a number of policy positions that we'll be taking to the election. I will briefly outline probably 4 or 5 of our main ones here tonight. And I describe them as not being unlike the 3 R's at school. You know, reading, writing, arithmetic. The basic minimum you need and the foundation for further studies. Well, we don't have the 3 R's in our policy, but we have the 3 E's. Education, energy, and the economy. And not unlike the 3 R's, if you don't get these ones right, it'll be hard going to do anything else. As I say, I will touch briefly upon them, but making sure I leave room for Mark to explain them further. Now, we know that a good education is essential to having the best start in life. That is why Mark has been so intent and focused on fixing up the mess that the New South Wales school system is in. We know, and evidence will show, that we have fallen way behind other countries as far as our academic results are concerned. But even more concerning is the fact that we have slipped in the rankings in Australia. We are behind every state except for South Australia. A good education is essential to obtaining a good, meaningful, secure, well-paying job. And we as a state need an educated workforce instead of relying on workers imported from overseas. Now, talking about jobs leads to the second E, and that is energy. We know that industry and business need cheap and reliable electricity. This is why we have been arguing against rushing at 100 miles an hour blindly into the 100% renewables. We have our eyes firmly open, and we have been watching what's been taking place around the world in places like Europe and California. And we know the folly of 100% renewables. We are pragmatic enough to know and are not scared enough to say that when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, we are still going to need reliable baseload power, and at present the only source that provides that is coal and gas. And of course we also argue that nuclear has a role to play. And again, I will leave that to Mark to expand upon a bit further. And the third E of those E's, of the three E's, is the economy. We know for all of us to prosper, we need a strong and secure economy. However, we know that the New South Wales economy is facing strong headwinds in the form of inflation, rising interest rates, and labour shortages, but to name a few. Now, the government does not appear to have any strategies for these challenges and continues to spend like the proverbial drunken sailor, continuing to drive the state into debt and deficit. Now, Labor is traditionally a big spending party when in government, so they will have no solution nor desire to address this. Only One Nation has a plan for budget correction, and again, I will leave that to Mark to explain further. Now, law and order is an area of concern for us in One Nation. We continually see community expectations and concerns forgotten for expedience and cost saving by both overworked and out of touch judges and magistrates. An offender can receive a reduction in sentence for an early plea of guilty, even when the evidence against them is irrefutable. Now, this is done to save court costs and time. Now, we believe the reverse should be the case. A lack of contrition should result in a harsher sentence. Cost and time should not be a determining factor in sentencing an offender just to save a few dollars. Victims deserve justice. Now, we will work to reduce the number and kinds of excuses an offender can use to obtain sentence reductions, such as the old chestnut of mental health issues or blaming drug use. We will call for the building of more prisons and reduce the use of home detention and electronic monitoring as a form of detention. Now, we will strengthen the bail laws to ensure that community safety is the main consideration when a bail determination is made. And we will also petition for a complete review on sentencing across New South Wales. We demand that offenders are held responsible and accountable for their actions, and the punishment should fit the crime. And we also recognise the exceptionally difficult job that our police and other frontline emergency service workers do. Therefore, we will stand beside them and show them our support for better and safer working conditions, better resources and training, and increased pay. Now, on Wednesday last week, just gone, I moved on behalf of our party a motion to debate the current housing crisis that we find ourselves in. I highlighted that whether you are trying to buy or rent, it is almost impossible out there at present. We know that. because we are on the ground concerned and listening. Now, Mark, in his contribution to the debate, talked about the cost of construction being hindered by red and green tape, with these burdens adding tens of thousands of dollars of construction costs to each dwelling. None of the other parties, none, and I repeat, none of the other parties has raised the issue of housing in Parliament. Only One Nation has. Now, we support small business, and I acknowledge there's a number of you in this room tonight who are small business owners, and I applaud you. For too long, small business has been taken for granted by the major parties, and you were thrown completely under the bus by the government during the pandemic. And I know that you are now turning to One Nation because you recognise that we have your back. So that is some of the main positions and policies that we as a party are taking forward to the election. So once again, I wish Adam and Rebecca good luck. It's a hard road, guys, but achieving worthwhile cause is never easy. And I congratulate you for standing up for what is right. And I've one last sentence to finish with, and that was good timing. Remember, One Nation is the only party standing up to the madness of the major parties. Thank you very much for your attendance this evening.
Another round of applause for Rod Roberts, please. Okay, everyone, we'll move on to our next speech. It will be the Honourable Mark Latham. Now, what can you say about a man whose career in politics has spanned longer than some of us have been alive? Mark Latham has left his mark on all three levels of government. As Mayor of Liverpool Council, Leader of the Federal Parliamentary Labor Party, and now as Leader of New South Wales One Nation. And to think that it all started here, nearby in Green Valley. Despite all the directions his career has taken him, his roots are still here in Western Sydney. This is his home, and it is clear that the needs of Western Sydney and New South Wales more broadly are still dear to his heart. Please welcome the Honourable Mark Latham.
Thanks very much, Stephen, and congratulations to Adam and Rebecca, not only for running in these very important seats, but helping with the organisation of this dinner, which effectively is launching their campaigns for Wallandilly and for Campbelltown. To my parliamentary colleague, Rod Roberts, I should also acknowledge some of the One Nation executives, state executive members here, Charlie Fenton, our State Director, Amit Batish, and Colin Grigg, who was a very good candidate we had in the Senate for the recent federal election. And to thank everyone here this evening for coming along and showing your support. These two electorates are critical. They're good One Nation seats. You can say that looking at past voting patterns. But the reason is that all politics is local, and the people spanning from Campbelltown to Wallandilly very much rely on One Nation to push certain ideas and policies to try and get them ahead. Rod mentioned the statewide policies we have in education, energy, law and order, the economy, but you can talk about the local impact here and get a sense of how important we are to your average working family in a place like Campbelltown right through to Wallandilly. Adam mentioned earlier on, this is a region neglected by the major parties, and there's two stunning examples of that. They're building the new Badgerys Creek Airport, and all the economic studies show that you get the major economic benefit by extending the rail line from Leppington to Badgerys Creek, to bring in all the manufacturing, the retail, the employment opportunities in the southwest of Sydney. So naturally the state government is not doing that. They're going for the pork barrelling option to try and help Stuart Ayres, spending billions of dollars, $13 billion, for what will end up being a ghost train running from Badgerys Creek north to St Mary's through cow paddocks. So there's an example of where the southwest is neglected totally, as they've got a preference for looking after Stuart Ayres in the seat of Penrith by allocating billions for a rail line that will achieve a minimal economic result compared to what could have been achieved for the southwest of Sydney. The second issue of neglect is on hospital provision. because you would know the vast residential growth area that's being built from Austral right through to the Aerotropolis and Badgerys Creek Airport, and the net result there will be, under the planning forecast, 1.3 million people will live west of the M7. Now, 1.3 million people is substantial. In a place like Adelaide, there are 4 public hospitals to service their population size of 1.3 million. The state government here has no plan to build an extra public hospital to service those 1.3 million people. So the extra pressure on Camden Hospital, Campbelltown Hospital, Liverpool, of course, they're going to be increasingly overcrowded and unable to service the population. So the state government hasn't even allocated the land. They've got all that land they've planned out around the airport site. They haven't even allocated the block of land on which you would build a future public hospital, let alone set aside the capital funding that's needed. So it's true, all politics is local, and this area, this local area, has been neglected badly by Labor over the years, but also the current government. Then you come to the policy themes that Rod was talking about. If you're growing up in an average income family in southwest Sydney or public housing, no one ever knocks on your door and says, here's a guaranteed job or a position in a company or ownership of something, here's your great leg up in life. The only thing you've got, effectively, is the public school down the road, and if it's not providing high quality tuition and education, then your life chances are much diminished. And that's the tragedy, that when Rod says we've got fast falling school academic results in New South Wales, the real impact is in a region like this where there's no alternative. You need those schools to be lifting people up and giving them their best chance in life to go on to higher education, to better qualifications in trades, and get the job and career that they need. So our policy is clear, to get back to best practice teaching methods in the classroom, for teachers to actually teach, not be facilitators, for students to learn from teacher tuition rather than be the woke fad of self-starting learners, to get all the political content out of the classroom. Rebecca mentioned gender fluidity, which is a sin against young people, a crime against young people, to be confusing a 7-8-year-old boy that he can be a girl and vice versa. That's the sort of political content that's got to go out, and we've got to get back to the basics of literacy and numeracy in particular, but all the subjects that are needed to be taught in an effective best practice way. On energy, we've got pensioners in this region too scared to turn on their cooling systems in summer, their heating systems in winter, for fear of the cost. And you might have seen just this week, there's some debate about what's the cheapest form of energy and what's the direction we should be headed in. Our policy, of course, is to have a mix of nuclear, coal, gas, renewables, if they can survive without government subsidy. New South Wales should be a global energy superpower with everything flourishing. And the more energy supply you have, the cheaper the electricity prices. But the head of Alinta Energy at a conference just this week rang the bell on the truth of what's gone on with the remaking of the energy grid for the purpose of apparently saving the planet. And he said that their company, Alinta, has a challenge of closing down 1,000 megawatts of the existing electricity system, that's basically coal-fired, and that's worth a value of $1 billion. And to replace that with renewables, windmills and solar farms, and also firming capacity, so that's things like batteries and pumped hydro, it's going to cost them $8 billion. So to replace something that's worked well for us costing $1 billion, it's going to cost that company alone, and they're just one of the companies, $8 billion. So that's a markup of 800%, 8 times the expense. So you don't need to be Einstein to work out at that point where the price increases are coming from. Matt Keane's not paying that extra money. The company executives aren't paying that extra money. Chris Bowen's not paying that extra money. You are. The consumers are paying the extra 800% needed to rebuild the electricity grid. And that's why there's a projection next year, on top of the existing price rises, of a 35% increase in the electricity bill. Now that hits hardest here. It hits hardest here in Ingleburn, in Campbelltown, in Wallandilly, in southwest Sydney. That's where it hits people hard in their pocket, because they're the ones who can least afford it. So these are big, big problems, along with housing affordability, which Rod mentioned. Our policy is to help people get away from upfront stamp duty as much as possible, to get rid of those green tape environmental programs imposed by Matt Keane and others that add $100,000 to the cost of building a new home in Sydney. $100,000. We could just save that straight away by saying this is housing. It's not a green environmental program we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to get young people into the housing market and ownership for the first time. So, there's a rich array of issues that Adam and Rebecca will be campaigning on. The hospital, the rail line, the schools, the energy prices, the housing affordability. And with your presence here this evening, you're really helping them. These campaigns need to run on resources, so we're raising a few bob tonight to try and help out. These are critical campaigns for One Nation where they also boost our upper house vote. We need more One Nation MPs in both chambers of the Parliament as a blocker against the madness of the Liberal Party and the National Party, which have gone crazy left-wing. Traditional Liberal voters don't recognise this party anymore. It's not the party of Howard and Greiner, Costello anymore. It's the party of Matt Keane, who might as well be in the Greens. So why would you vote for the Liberal Party when all you get is this green rubbish? And Labor, of course, has gone way left. There is a coalition. Rod and I, over the past 3.5 years, have been surprised a number of times. The voting pattern is the Liberals, the Nationals and Labor and the Greens unite, essentially against us. Our common sense mainstream positions to try and vote down our propositions or to knock us over when we're trying to stop their madness. So your attendance here this evening in support of Adam and Rebecca's campaign is really, really important. I thank you for that. I hope everyone wins the raffle and the golden ticket and does really well. I know from my Labor Party days that in all those gold envelopes there wouldn't be a single winner, but someone here tonight will win. They open the tickets and no one's won and they keep the prize, but we're much more honest here in One Nation. There will be a winner in there. There'll be one. And the bloke in the Labor Party used to run those scams where there was no winner was John O'Johnson, and you'd come to the next function and he's doing exactly the same thing for exactly the same prize. But we'll have a prize winner here tonight, and I know that Adam and Rebecca really appreciate the fundraising effort and your attendance this evening in support of their critical campaigns. As Rod and I and all our party executive appreciate what you're doing. But I just want to finish on a lighter note, because this evening shouldn't be all serious politics. These are critical issues, of course. But we also like to enjoy ourselves in One Nation. And how many people here were at CPAC, the conference a couple of... Right, that's more than I expected. But there's a majority here that weren't. So you'll know this story I'm telling came from James Allen at his presentation at CPAC, so I don't want to be a plagiarist and steal someone's funny story. But he told the story, the traditional one, of a fellow walking down the beach and he stumbles on the magic lamp, gives it a rub, and out pops the genie. Well, this fellow happens to be a One Nation member who's rubbed on the lamp and the genie comes out. And the genie says, well, you know the drill, you get 3 wishes, but there's a twist. Because you're from One Nation, the twist is that whatever you wish for, I'm going to double for and apply it to every single green, woke lefty in Australia. Whatever you wish for, every green voter in Australia will get double. So just be aware of that as you do your wishes. So the One Nation fellow says, okay, wish number 1, I'll go for a new Mercedes for myself. And the genie's shocked. You're from One Nation, you're wishing a Mercedes for yourself, knowing that the Greens will get 2. He said, well, I'll probably get an electric vehicle and it won't work real well for them. But anyway, we'll go for that. And the genie, okay, we'll go for that. So then the genie says, wish number 2. And the One Nation fellow says, well, I want $1 million for myself. And the genie at this point is completely gobsmacked. Can't believe it. It says, but $1 million for you is $2 million for every single Green voter in Australia. Surely you don't want that. He said, no, it's all right. It's all right, I'm being generous on my second wish. Okay, right, we'll go ahead with that. $1 million for you, $2 million for every Green voter in Australia. And the genie says, and your third and final wish? The One Nation fellow says, well, I'd like to donate 1 kidney to science. Thank you.
Okay, so when I ran as the One Nation candidate for Warringah, I knew I had a monumental task ahead of me. I was told constantly that I had a remote chance of winning. On many nights I'd be out letterboxing, until the wee hours of morning, often joined by my good friend Sam Buno, sitting in the back over there. I think Sam just enjoyed coming out and giving me a real political education. Despite my best efforts to argue that the people of Warringah would see through the smoke and mirrors of the Teals and that they would come to common sense, practical and sound policies of One Nation, he would always quip back, "You've got candidates disease." My response to Sam was that no matter what the result was, if I could walk away from my campaign with a good group of friends, then it would all be worth it. Thankfully, I can say that I was able to walk away with some good group of friends, many of whom are in this room tonight. What I wasn't expecting was that not only would I walk away from the campaign with a good friend, but a brother. You can clap at that if you like. Now, I think I work hard, but Adam Zahra, who's sitting here, he's the next level. It baffles me how a man can work 6, sometimes 7 days a week, run his own company, raise 3 children, do a podcast, attend every convention, Rotary Club meeting, have dinners with his volunteers, and make every One Nation event from here to Newcastle. Not only that, he still has time to become friends with every person he encounters. Mind you, he does have a remarkable wife by his side every step of the way. I know his passion. He's passionate about this party, his community, and his family. If, or as he says, when he gets into Parliament, he will be the hardest working member there. Please welcome Adam Zahra.
Wow, thank you very much for that, Stephen. Thank you. Okay, so now I don't want to. That's quite a big talk up actually. So I'm going to let you all down. Okay. Well, so far the night's been great. Thank you very much for coming. Liberal, Nationals, Labor, and the Greens have all blended together. They make the Browns. It's funny when you mix blue, red, and green together that you get the colour brown. It's symbolic of an emoji that is brown and has flies hovering over it. I guess it stinks. With major parties abandoning their traditional values, it leaves the most devout supporters without a home. I had a lovely gentleman once speak to me a few weeks ago when I was in his house. He was a Greens member. He's been a Greens member for a long, long time. He's about 70 years old. So what happened there was he comes up to me and goes, "So I had to let my membership go because I cannot, with hand on my heart, say that I can stand with the Greens anymore." He goes, "I don't care for most of the policies that they have." He goes, I identify with 2. He goes, "I don't care about the woke ideology, and I don't care about the transgenderism and all that stuff." He goes, "What I care about is I care about saving the koalas, I care about saving the trees, and I care about saving the planet." So I said to him, "I'm really sorry that you don't have a home anymore, but I think you should look at One Nation. Because we're not here to destroy the planet, we're here to conserve the planet. That's what Conservatives do. Conservatives conserve what they have and make it better." So that was just a little story from when I was at work the other day. I'll probably reiterate a little bit what Mr. Latham and Mr. Roberts has said about energy. I think energy is the biggest and the most important thing that we need to worry about and we need to work on. I know it's really important with the education system, and I know it's really important, and I stand with One Nation, with the woke ideologies and with the cost of living, but how do we address any of those unless we can get a proper base power happening? We need to sort out our energy crisis. We need to put all this wind turbines and solar panels and all this kind of stuff to bed, because it's all based on what I can only find out to be false science. Climate change has become an ideology. Who comes up to you and turns around and says, "Hey, Here's some evidence, and this is why I believe in climate change. When I speak to people, they go, I believe in climate change. I think you should believe in God, believe in Jesus, believe in a higher power, but don't believe in something that's man-made. We should have evidence. Science is about evidence, and it's about being able to repeat the experiment and making it happen. That's what we should be worried about. That's what we should be looking towards. Have a look on your table there. Can everyone see the little nuclear radioactive waste can? Go on, pick it up, pass it around, have a look at that. Seriously, don't shake it. Okay. What if I told you that would be, from birth to death, the complete waste that you would produce if we used nuclear energy? Every person, for their whole life, would be one can of uranium. That's all you would need to power your life, from birth to death. That's what we're talking about. It takes 360 times more area to put wind farms in than it does to put a nuclear power station. That's for a 1,000 megawatt power station. Okay, this is all based on a science of carbon dioxide ruining the environment. Okay, the environment, carbon dioxide is a naturally occurring gas. Okay, and the figure is the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We've heard everyone talk about it. 0.04%. It's not going to blow out the whole reading. Okay, so what happens is of the 0.04%, we produce 3%, 0.00012%. That's all we're talking about. That's almost a measurable number. Okay, so carbon dioxide is a fallacy. What we're going to say, let's talk about trigger warming. Trigger warming. If we had a stadium full of 100,000 people, 40 people out of that 100,000 people represent carbon dioxide. One punter out of that 40 who's a little bit overweight is the waste of the carbon dioxide that humans produce. That's how little the number is. So we're ruining our economies, we're ruining our chances of building a better future, we're raising the cost of living. We're doing all this over something so small. How many lives does it affect? I hope everyone's enjoying their $270 savings on their energy bills, because everything's gone upside down and inside out and all around. When was the $270 savings an 18% increase? What happened there? We're in the upside down. It's a different world. Okay? So what happens is we're also going to get a 35% increase by January or February next year. What happened to the green? And we're using more green energy than we've ever used before, more renewables, more intermittent energy. When will people wake up? When will people realise? And when will people call these guys out and say, hey, don't invest your $8 billion or $10 billion, Mr. Keen, Mr. Green Keen. Okay? Let's worry about. Why don't we introduce or invest our $10 billion into nuclear energy? Into our coal-fired power stations. Let's get them working again. Let's get them re-happening. Let's get the cost of living down. Because as Mark has said before, as Rod has said before, okay, this is the area that it affects. It affects the guys. We are the most cold state in the world. Us, the tradie, we have to jump in our cars and we have to go on all our little roads and we have to hear that little beep, and I'm like, cha-ching, beep, cha-ching, thank you very much. It's really, really bad. So we earn the least and we get taxed the hardest, and then what happens is the road tolls, speed cameras, all these things are on top of it. Not to mention that we have to also have, do you know that you have, every one of us has a $22,750 debt to our name because of the deficit that we're in today. $182 billion gross deficit we have. And they're going to invest more in it. Time to wake up Australia, time to get us going, time to get things happening, time to go nuclear, time to get coal-fired power station working, and time to just end the ideology. We want that. I'm not going to talk for too much longer, but we also spoke about, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Latham also spoke about common sense. So everyone's been looking at this. It's really good. I made it up the other night. Okay? One nation. The scissors of common sense. Okay? And then we have the red tape, we have the green tape, and now, to be honest with you, we have the blue tape too. I remember Stephen said to me, what's blue tape? And I'm like, it's the Liberals, man. Okay? They slid so far to the left that they made their own tape. Tape binds, tape encompasses, the tape stops progress. Okay? One nation, the orange common sense of scissors. And we're going to cut through the red, the green, and the blue tape. Thank you.